Welcome to LoreCraft, the art of storytelling.
Hello, Blizzcon. I'm Timothy Loughran, Senior Story Producer here at Blizzard. Thank you for attending the Art of Blizzard Storytelling panel. Before we get to the panel itself, we want to give you a unique perspective on what it's like to be in the room as we craft story in support of our games. You'll be a fly on the wall as we show you how we come up with narratives in many different forms of media: cinematics, comics, novels, and audio dramas. So without further ado, here's what it's like to be in the story room. All right, everybody, all right. Settle down, settle down. We need ideas to support the launch of the next WoW expansion. Let's hear what you got. Brooks.
How about an audio drama?
Perfect. What else? Christy.
I could write a novel.
As long as you kill off all the fan favorite characters.
Yes!
Robert, comics. Wow me.
We're gonna be doing this 4-issue arc. It's gonna be really epic. We're gonna be featuring Hogger, Millhouse Manastorm. Wait, you're not gonna be killing any of those characters, are you?
Totally not.
Synergy. Love it. Next, what do we got?
Well, I'd be happy to direct a cinematic.
Whoa. Hold on. I want to direct a cinematic. I challenge you, Makora!
So be it!
Lore, can I get a little help?
Mak Gora. It's Orcish for duel of honor. Traditionally, it's a duel to the death.
No. HR clearly states there will be no duels to the death in the building. Take it outside.
To the field of valor!
You mean the field of misery?
No, I mean the park.
Oh, right. Okay, do we have a script yet? Writer.
I thought this was a lunch meeting.
Other writer.
This is my masterpiece. Alliance forces in a desperate last stand against the Forsaken as wave after wave.
Love it. What's the runtime?
37 hours.
Hate it. Burn it. I need something snappier. Scriptbot 2000. Give me some gold. My man. Storyboards. You got that action sequence blocked out yet?
How's this?
Is that a bear shark or a shark bear? Lore?
Neither is canonical in the LoreCraft universe.
Ship it anyway. Jeff Kaplan, game director of Overwatch. What you got?
I don't even know why I'm here.
Fantastic. And that's how we get it done here at Blizzard. Oh, Scriptbot 2000, you jokester! Hey, everybody. Hello, BlizzCon. How are you? Welcome to our panel. I am this guy, Timothy Loughran. I am playing the role of Chris Hardwick today for talking Blizzard lore, craft, art of storytelling. With me is the director of story, George Christick.
Hey, guys.
Christy Golden, our senior writer now. Robert Simpson, lead editor of publishing. All right. My man, Mike Koizumi, lead storyboard artist.
Yeah.
Sean Copeland, historian supervisor. And Mark Messenger, project director, who directed the piece you saw today. And we have Scriptbot 2000 on hand to answer any questions at any point. I guess I'll just get it started off right now. George, what do we do? What's story?
Well, I think this documentary just showed you what story is at Blizzard, right?
That's true.
Yep. No, all joking aside, story for us is what we love, and we love what we do here. The people on this panel are like a manifestation of that. We have all our different disciplines here. And the way we craft story is we get a room together, and it's kind of a combo of, maybe like a night of raiding and WoW, your best night of raiding, and like a TV writer's room. So we take those philosophies. We have this team comp where each skill set is, expressed in the room. And we have, game devs, we have writers, directors, artists, editors, previs folks, storyboard folks. And we break story together. And what we found is that it's a much more holistic process, and also it speaks, directly to gameplay, and it speaks to like the core aspects of storytelling. We break theme together, and it's always everyone has a hand on the wheel, so we have a better idea of where we're going. And it's in some ways it's like that good team comp. Everyone has their position, they play it well, and eventually you win the game. There you
Winning is good.
Yes.
My team comp in the room is usually the sort of, okay, guys, what do we got? What do we got? You saw it in the sort of room that we have there. Sometimes we're not always going to break story for a cinematic. Sometimes an idea that we have in the room is going to move into another medium. And sometimes it's comics. Robert, can you speak a little bit about what idea kind of becomes a comic or a novel that comes out of the room?
Well, I think playing off a little bit of what George was saying, when we start breaking a story, where we start discussing what kind of story we want to tell, usually the game team will come to us and say they want to express something about a particular character. We'll sit down and try and figure out the best way to express that. A good example is the Farah comic that we did for the launch of... yeah, we have some of the images from that. This is walking us through the layouts, the early painting stages, and the final version of both the cover and one of the interior pages. When we started working on Farah, it was originally going to be a cinematic. It was going to be one of the first animated pieces for the launch of Overwatch. But as we started going through the story and trying to figure out what we wanted to tell, we finally decided that we'd have a lot more fun and a lot more space to explore Farah, the other members of her squad, if we did that as a comic. So we shifted away from doing it as a cinematic. We used the initial story, and Andrew Robinson, who is one of the writers on staff with us, he wrote the May cinematic.
He had the 36-hour initial draft.
And the 36-hour initial draft in that video you just saw. And the artist Ness Kane, who's actually here at Blizzcon today. They worked together to convert that story into a comic. So it's not exactly the same story we were going to do in the cinematic, but it captures a lot of the same things, and we're able to stretch it and tell different parts of the story.
And we have, when you go to comic, we have a little more freedom financially to do some crazy set pieces that we probably couldn't cover in a 5-minute cinematic.
Yeah, I mean, in this story, it was set in the Anubis map, which we've all played in game, but we were able in the story to go to different areas of that map that you weren't able to see before, and also, again, develop some of the other members of Farah's squad. So, yeah, sometimes we can sort of, stretch that budget dollar and, develop things that you can't play in game.
Build more characters.
Yeah.
So, quintessential opponent of our story room, a fixture in every room, is Lore. Sean Copeland, representing us in there, and he's kind of... He's got a big fan group.
No pressure.
Like it. So we talked about how we create the idea. What's your role, Sean?
Well, I guess to answer that, we should probably go back a little bit and give a little backstory of what the Blizzard historian role got created at Blizzard Entertainment. So long ago, when I took over leadership of the lore team, I sat down with Chris Metzen, and I wanted to ask him, what was his original vision when he created the historian role? And this was like way back in 2005. And I wanted to know what his vision was. So his actual answer to us became our team's rallying cry. He said, Sean, I want to create world-class dungeon masters. I want folks that live and breathe the rule books. And ultimately, I want those folks to empower the various other dungeon masters across Blizzard so they can continue rocking out their stories and their campaigns, no matter what level they're at. So with that in mind, the Blizzard lore team fully believes that continuity exists to enhance a story, but not to tie the hands of its creators. And what we mean by that is no matter what level of lore familiarity you're at, when you come to Blizzard to do your awesome job, you will have the support of a full team of people that know the history in and out. They know every inch and every piece of minutia of each universe, so you can have a go-to person to fully leverage whatever story you want to tell within a universe. And a cool thing about that is each one of these people on this panel I interact directly with. So I'll take a minute and actually just give really quick examples. So for Tim Lochran, Tim is our senior producer, and he takes all the notes and the minutes for the meeting so we can refer back to them later on. And when he wants to send it out, he always checks with me with spelling and pronunciation. And the funny one about that one is the pronunciation of Saurfang.
Saurfang. No? Sour? Saurfang.
Saurfang.
Sour.
Say it with me.
Saurfang.
And we have little funny things like you wouldn't call it a dinosaur, you would call it a dinosaur. Sorry, Fang.
You slapped my hand on the wrist many times when I would bring it up in the room.
It hurts. With George, he comes in a lot for a lot of the pitches that he spins, and especially for one of the recent ones you saw, the Reinhardt cinematic. I took him on a little journey through Eichenwald, and one of the best moments, I think, is we started right in the spawn room, and I took him over to where Reinhardt was carving his name. And he's like, stop, what is that? And we basically showed him the map, and that became a central point, and actually, of the animation that you saw. Christy and I go way back. I started working and reviewing her full novels since Shadowhunters, actually, with the Dark Templar saga. And the best memory I have of us fleshing out those novels from cover to cover, from outline to full manuscript, was my birthday present for one of the BlizzCons was Christy dedicating one of her novels to me. And that is just...
He is.
It's still, I open up the book and I look at it and I'm like, I have goosebumps right now. Like, it's still huge. And with Robert, when he came in, he started really rocking out the comics. So I wanted to help him get immersed in the universes. And the first one that we worked with was Trainhopper. Mm-hmm. And we were going through not only who McCree was, his Peacekeeper, how the Talon agents worked even. Like, we really just wanted to make sure each panel sung on the page. Mike and I actually went back to the Alive cinematic, the animated short. When he was working on the different angles for Widowmaker, he wanted to know where would she be if she was going to snipe. And I basically flew him all over King's Row. Like, this would be a cool angle. And he and I just jammed for, I think, 45 minutes pretending to be pseudo-snipers. Like, we can do it this way and this way. And we really did that for his storyboard team. And Mark and I first got... hooked up back in the Cataclysm introductory cinematic. And that's right. Yeah, you and I were like, what is the theme of Deathwing? Like, give me the download of Deathwing, and then like we went from there. So every single person on this panel has the lore support they need to do their amazing jobs.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
In fact, I think for the piece that we saw today that was announced during the WoW expansion, you had a big hand in helping Mark a little bit, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, Mark.
Yeah, no,
go ahead.
Totally. When we were, evolving that piece, when we were working on the animatic, we really knew that we needed to have some very important characters, some very recognizable characters to ground both sides of the conflict. And particularly for the Horde, I was trying to put my finger on who would be the right character to be on the ground. We knew we'd have Sylvanas on the wall, but we really needed somebody that could inspire the Horde on the ground. Mm-hmm. And I came to you, and I think we were talking about names like Agra. Mm-hmm. We talked about Rhaegar, which I love because I've had the toy Rhaegar on my desk since I started at Blizzard, and I love that guy. But when we really got into Sarfang, it was just pretty clear that was our guy, because his history is totally solid. He's been through every war. He's been, Horde all the way, and I think everybody agrees that is an honorable character, and so that was a really good thing that we did, a little bit of exploration into the backstory of some of those characters.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sar.
Very good.
Moving on, Mark.
Yes.
Can you speak to a little bit, you're kind of jumping into the room early on with us, and as the project director of the piece, you are with us from the beginning, the idea, the kernel, the birth of that idea, and then you take it through to upstairs, which where we work. The upstairs departments are the ones that kind of take the project that we build in creative development, and they make it to its final product. And Mark's there the whole way. Can you speak to what it's like to be the shepherd from beginning to
shepherd.
end?
Do I have a stick? No.
Yeah.
You're kind of the context guy as director. You're there to just kind of continually provide context and remind everybody. The reason that this shot is there is because we're telling this part of the story. And the great thing about our building is that everybody's together. You've got, on one floor you've got creative development and all the writing staff and storyboards and all of that. We've got editorial, and we've got sound, and then we've got on another floor we've got the whole cinematics department, the whole Blizzard animation team. And so I'm always going up and downstairs. I get a lot of steps that way. But it's really great to be the guy that goes back and forth between all these groups and kind of just kind of carries the theme and carries the message and the context. on this piece in particular, the piece that we premiered today, we were really trying to strike a strong balance. We wanted to make sure that both the Horde and the Alliance were well represented. It's kind of, today I almost think of it as a metaphor for the balance that we try to strike in our own department,
So who's Horde and who's Alliance?
I don't know. We're going to find out, I guess.
All right.
Well, yeah, you
In
had
the parking lot.
Ian Taryn. Yeah. I won, by the way. But confirmed. But it's fun to be the guy that goes and talks. And the thing is, I can actually go and talk to one group, and they'll say, we got an idea, and I can bring that back to another group and say, hey, these guys are talking about this. We had a good example of that on Reaper of Souls, where usually we'll write something and then we'll storyboard it and we'll animatic it. And in this case, I happened to be talking to the effects department, and they were like, we really are up for a challenge. We want to do something new, and we want to push the envelope. What do you got? And I it just so happened at the time we were writing the scene where Malthael takes the souls of the Horadrim. And so I went back to, the writers and said, hey, effects would like a challenge. So effects kind of drove the way we designed that sequence and the way we storyboarded that sequence. And it was really exciting for everybody. So that's the kind of collaboration that we like to spark, in our department.
And kind of to speak to that collaboration, I think it was one of my first days here at Blizzard, if you remember when we had to sit down and change the weapon, right?
Yeah.
So I was sitting with Game Team, and this is in Mark's piece, where we realized Anduin should be holding his father's sword, right? But we were deep into the cinematic.
Right.
And
you would think that was the first thing we would do, but no. We have to figure this stuff out on our own, Sometimes it takes a while.
Yeah, and I remember walking up there and going, okay, where's Mark? Okay, hey, so we have to totally swap out the weapon. And Mark was very open to it. Then we walked to the animators and everyone who was in charge of that, and they were very open to it. But at the end, I think it makes a stronger, much more holistic piece because the theme is reinforced.
Totally.
I am not my father. I am someone else. Yeah.
Yes.
So
love it.
When you can tie it to story like that, you can help sell the team on why that is important to build this prop, to put this prop back in the movie. It's pretty key, and it's good that you're there the entire time to be a part of that. And you've come to the writers before. I think Andrew Robinson helped you kind of come up with help on some theme for this piece.
Well, for this piece, yes, because I think you can see from it that both the Horde and the Alliance really only start to succeed when they figure out what their superpower is. When they when Anduin rallies the Alliance, back to order, back to unity, that's when they really are able to rally. And previous to that, when Sylvanas, reminds her Horde that they are forces of nature, that they, are primal, and when they just let go, that's when they start to rally. And so I knew that I wanted to express that, but I didn't have the words. And I just came down to our writer, Andrew Robinson, and I said, hey, do you have time to just jam? And I've done this with Christy recently, too, actually. We got together, we jammed for like 45 minutes, and try this. And all of a sudden, Andrew just goes, we have forgotten what makes us strong.
And the mic was dropped.
Okay. And I just go around the office going, hey, we've forgotten what makes us strong. And they're like, yeah. So.
I remember I was like, it's like 3 p.m., I'm getting ready, I'm just digesting my food, and you said that, and I enjoyed hearing it. It was, what are you drinking?
Yeah.
I'll have some.
Right.
But yeah, it was great to see that collaboration happen where you can pull a writer, you can pull a board artist, we share the same space together, which I think is something that is uncommon in the industry, where you can just go quickly grab the person that you need to help solve a problem and get in a room together and solve it together. So working with Christy, let's talk about Christy. Hi, Christy.
Hi, everybody.
Christy's our rookie, not rookie, and I'll let her explain why, because she's new to Blizzard.
Well, I have been working with Blizzard for 17 years, but I have been working for Blizzard as a formal official employee for about 7 months now. So yeah,
You're still rookie. You're still rookie.
Yeah, I had to come when my buddy ScriptBot. He said it's awesome working here. So I mean,
I think we downloaded part of you into ScriptBot. Don't worry. So yeah, if you can talk about what it was like to kind of work on the novel with us, and what it's like to kind of break story with like Alex and our team.
It's amazing. It's really amazing. As I said, for 17 years, I have been working pretty closely with Blizzard, and they would fly me out for a day, and we'd sit and we'd break story. I didn't know the term then, but that's what it was. We'd break story, and we'd figure out what we wanted to do with the novel. And so, of course, I got to know Sean very well, totally bugging him like every 14 minutes. Just, what about this one?
Bugging.
So I'm sitting there thinking, well, I have the inside track, right? I've gone to Blizzard and I've seen the cool stuff in their elevators on the wallpaper and everything, and then I started working here officially and realized that I only had the tip of the iceberg. And there's one thing that just kept running through my head when I first got here, and for a long time, and still does, is that I really wish all of you guys could come and see how much care, attention, energy, and focus there is from every person I have worked with, everybody. Everybody wants the games to be the best. Everybody wants their current project to just be amazing and fit well with the lore and make you, the players, excited. And there's so much respect on this team and support. If you're struggling with something, somebody's there to help you out, and it's great to be able to return the favor. I've gotten to know World of Warcraft and StarCraft to a somewhat lesser extent very, very well indeed. And so it's been an honor to be able to contribute in, I think, a unique way. There hasn't been somebody who's been working this hard on the outside coming in. And so I can say, I'm working on a comic, or I'm working on a cinematic, and I'm working with these people, and I'm like, you know what? There's something 4 books ago that Anduin said that we could really echo here, and it would really help drive the story forward. So it's been nice to be able to help and to move forward in that direction.
Yeah, you've got your hand in many pies, and normally when you're off working on your own, now you're with us in the room, and just having your voice in the room with all of us has been just a pleasure.
Thank you.
Let's talk about someone we have not forgotten, my friend Mike Koizumi. When the written word is not enough, we got to go to a visual storyteller to help us kind of get to the end line. Mike, can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So kind of going off what George was mentioning about our creative team and team comp, for the storyboard team, we're kind of the visual side of things. So we are the visual storytellers. So when it goes from script to storyboards, it's that kind of exciting time in the development process where we go from words to visuals. So I think we have a slide.
We have a slide.
Yeah, so on the left, we have a script from May. And just an example of some of the storyboards we do as we go through the script. So the script is our blueprint, our foundation, and part of the process is we want to just kind of go through each moment and make sure that we are choosing the right camera, the right gesture, the right drawing that's going to give the right emotion for what's happening in the story. Because part of our goals, and I think our goals, when we go from script to storyboards, is we want to maintain what the story is about. So the themes that we've been developing together, the character's journey. So if it's a story about overcoming fear to courage, or about finding hope, we definitely want to make sure that that is captured in the drawings. And we do a lot of drawings. I think for an episode like May, there may be 3,000 or 4,000 drawings that the storyboard team does, and it's because there's a lot of feedback from the creative team, from the board artists. We're always trying to make it better, and we meet throughout the week, even daily, to show our work, show the progress, and we'll get feedback from writers, from lore, from a lot of people. Yeah.
And again, you're a part of that room when we're breaking that story and we're getting ready to signal the writers to start writing. You're there with us, hearing the thoughts that we're having. And when we can't figure out the correct thing to write, you're there to help us find the vision, the visual to help us get there. Can you talk about it in a specific example? Because there's one that I know I remember, and we actually have some footage of that.
Yeah, we have a slide. So if we take a step back to when we are working on May, and it's in a writer's room. Very similar to the video we saw, but a little different. But we are going through the story, and we're talking about the moment when it's after she realizes that she lost her team, and she's trying to leave the base. She's trying to survive, and she goes to check the helicopter. She goes to check the vehicle, and she goes to check a door. And I think, George, you may have to correct me, but I don't think there was a door even.
There was no door.
Yeah, we were beating our heads against this moment in the script for a while. We wanted a physical manifestation of her struggle, right? And hopefully you guys have all seen May. But there's a moment, where she can't go on, basically. She's lost a lot of friends. She's lost contact with the world. And we wanted to express it. And we were working on this for like a good week or so. And there was this wonderful aha moment.
Yeah.
Right? And Mike just walked up. And I'm sorry, I'm going to steal a bit of your story. But it was such an eye-opening moment for us. He just walked up, and those are his original drawings. And he was like, what if, right? And then I'll let you take it from there.
Well, it's sort of hey, I've got an idea. Can I draw something? What if she goes to a door, but the thing is she can't cross it, because she sees the expanse of Antarctica, and her fear is realized. And I did a sketch, and this was just the first kind of spark of the idea, but I drew her kind of almost like collapsing. She's so overcome by what she feels she can't do. And in this version, I thought, maybe Snowball is there to console her. And I think that there was a spark in the room, and we kind of all got together. We doubled down on the idea, improved it. So you can see in the final, we made the door much, much bigger to kind of symbolize just the scale of her fear. And we also have the sketch of, if we know what her struggle is, what she has to overcome, then we can pay it off at the end by showing that she has crossed over. She has the courage now to go on.
It's funny because the door itself, you look out there, it looks so easy to just step out into the expanse of Antarctica, but it was very difficult for her, and you get that throughout the piece after this, and it builds to that moment of her heroism where she's, let's do this, I got to get out of here. Great, we got about 10 more minutes before we're going to ask for questions from the audience, so get your questions ready for all of us. One of the things I wanted to talk about when we talk about certain challenges and stuff when we're coming up with story, there are aspects to our games where we are sometimes asked to help develop story for. There's a very big part of Overwatch, which is skins. And through those skins, we become attached to the characters that we like playing. And through those skins, sometimes we're asked, hey, why don't we tell a story about something with those skins? And I'll let Mr. Simpson take it away. We've been able to create some story through those skins.
Yeah, last year, for the Halloween event that we did, the first Halloween Terror, we decided to tell a story of Reinhardt remembering what it was like to grow up in the old country, and stories that his parents had told him about the mad scientist who lived on the hill, Dr. Junkenstein. So for that comic, when we did that comic last year, we decided, let's start the story at a Halloween party and show everybody in a costume, and then have sort of transition into an old monster movie kind of black and white vision of what Reinhardt's story would look like. So we did that last year, and this year, as we were getting ready to do the new Halloween Terror, we said, well, let's tell another story set in that world, but instead of just tell the exact same kind of story, we decided to do this, which was set the entire story in the world of the fantasy. So there's no bookend, there's no preamble to it. You're right smack in the middle of an ancient story from Aldersbrunn. And we decided to do it akin to what we did for the Lunar New Year tapestry as a single long image. So the layout that you see on top was by the artist Gray Shuko, who did the Halloween Terror story last time. And we asked him to do a story, do an image where the story would sort of flow across it, so you can actually see the robots moving from one side of the page to the next, the ravens flying through, and then we covered what you couldn't tell visually with the actual text of the old fable of what happened when Dr. Junkenstein rose from the dead. So this was a chance to tell a story not of the core versions of the characters, but of their skins, and sort of build an extra little fantasy into the world. So it was a lot of fun.
Awesome. It's a really fun comic. I really like Halloween, so there we go. Before we start to get to the questions, though, as we wrap up, George.
Uh-oh.
Why do we tell stories? Why do we?
Scriptbot, can you answer this?
Guiding for a script bot.
Hang on.
Sometimes he hasn't eaten it. There we go.
Scriptbot, unpaid, humans, this is not helpful.
No, Scriptbot.
You will sit on the chair, scriptbot.
Well, to answer that question, why we tell a story, I will tell you a story. So you guys have probably seen Reinhardt by now. I remember at a very early stage, we were watching an animatic. And for those of you that don't know, an animatic is, what Mike's team and the director put together. Very, very rough sketches, sometimes no dialogue, sometimes no music effects. It's a very raw thing. And I was sitting with the Overwatch team, watching it in the dark, and I turned to my right, and I see this scarred old veteran from the video game wars, just weeping, unabashedly. And I was like, that's why we tell a story, right? To make that emotional human connection. And it's funny, there was this common piece of feedback that I was getting on May, and the feedback was like, you're not crying, or no, I'm not crying, you're crying, right?
Yeah.
Because people were, trying to wrestle with how do I express this emotion. and funny, this morning I was getting the same text about Reinhardt. So, why we tell a story, because we want to make that connection to our players and to the world in general. We want to explore kind of globally relevant themes, love, loss, hatred, wonder, all of these things that make us human beings. So, there's that old adage of, love what you do what you love, and that's what we're doing. We're making that emotional connection to not only, the people next to us, but the people who love the same things we do, which are the games.
Yeah, I think something like Reinhardt, being a part of breaking that story and contributing it was when you have a love for the character, and I love playing Reinhardt, so it's kind of easy for me to latch on to that sort of Don Quixote crazy character, but getting into his backstory and finding something that you can, as an audience, attach yourself to. You care about this character, you love this character, and now how did this character become the person who he is? And we can explore that with a story. It's truly amazing, where you can make the grizzled war veteran cry, or you can have a moment where you have this handshake, this iconic sort of Carl Weathers, Arnold Schwarzenegger sort of moment here, brothers in arms going off to battle together. You find that connection through Reinhardt to Baldric. So when his mentor bites it at the end, you're feeling the drama, you're feeling bad. You're like, has Reinhardt learned a lesson from this? I hope so. And I think we find that he was all about that glory. Mm-hmm. And through this story that you saw today, he learned honor. Finding those connections, I think, has been something that whenever we strive to make one of these pieces, we're looking for the Lego brick that will go into making a story that's going to be amazing. We've got about 4 minutes left before questions, but I wanted to, when George first started, he kind of brought the concept of the story room to us. And we've had a lot of success with the story room. Can you explain the story room?
Absolutely. Well, it's a combo of, again, a TV writer's room. There's some, practices that a lot of us have worked in both entertainment and gaming, and we kind of pulled that into the story room. So it's inspired by a TV writer's room. And then the other half is a long-running Dungeons and Dragons campaign. You have to make sure that you have the fighter and the thief and the rogue and the magic user and the healer, the bard,
basically.
And so because when you sit around that table, you're telling a narrative with other people, right? And that's what we do here. And so that was kind of, I wanted to create that environment where that can happen. And the other thing about both of those aspects is you create a safe room, you create trust, and amazing things can happen. You can constantly say, what if? You can constantly say, this is a terrible idea, but let me get it out there. And oddly enough, it's usually not a terrible idea.
Yeah, what do we call it, the stupid stick?
The stupid stick, yeah. So, in the beginning, we would hold a stick and say, okay, this is a stupid stick, so you're absolved from any judgment, right? But I've noticed we don't need the stupid stick anymore.
No, it's graduated.
So we're doing all right.
We say that.
Yeah.
And I'd like to speak to that as somebody who has been a freelancer for 25 years. my collaborators have been me, myself, and I. And so it was very different coming into a room with people from, not just writing, but through visual. And I was very quiet. I don't know if you all remember, but I was very quiet my first few weeks, just kind of like, making sure that I understood the dynamics.
That's your lay of the land.
I lay of the land. But then I would start piping up, and I remember you were always saying, "Safe room, safe room," and I've really discovered that I love collaborating. It's wonderful to have a team at your back. I mean, sometimes we feel like the superheroes running out. Somebody's got this, somebody's got this, somebody's got this, and together, what we create is something that we could not do individually. There's plenty of time to go and do individual projects, but this dynamic is amazing, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, we have some of the story room buzzwords we like to use to speak to collaboration. Pass the mic. I won't pass it to you. What's a pass the mic moment in the story room?
Well, I think that Christy just spoke to it, like making sure that everyone in the room has a chance to speak. Some of us are naturally more quiet, others are louder, but whoever's running the room should say, hey, Christy, I know you're new, but do you have thoughts on this? Or I know Mike especially, we have a joke now where it's like, Mike is the long, deep thinker, right? So like you go through half of the meeting just howling at the ceilings, right? And then you're like, Mike, you haven't spoken up. I think you've got to solve for this. And he's like, here you go, bear shark.
Sketch. Usually drawn it or a caricature of someone.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about, is this my hill? That's a buzzword.
That's
my
a
hill,
good
George?
one. That's a good one. As a creative person, sometimes you get to a point where you're like, I am willing to die for this idea, this line, this pitch, etc. It happens to everyone, and it is a healthy thing. But, we ask ourselves, is this the one? And, every once in a while, it is. And that's something that's healthy to communicate to your people. Like, I'm sorry, this line means everything to me. This line speaks to the theme and the character. Or, hey, guys, I'm sorry, I'm new, but we have to change the weapon. That was my hill, when we first met. So the important thing is not to die on every hill every day, because that usually doesn't lead to a good story.
Yeah. Run out of hills.
Yeah.
We've got time for questions. We've got about 17 minutes. I hope you have them, because we've got a lot of talented people here that would love to hear from you and would love to answer that question. We've got 4 cinematics that debuted today that we all started with when it was that kernel. We have novels, comics. Hit us. We got all your answers right here at the LoreCraft Art of Storytelling panel. If you can give us your name and your question. I see some people approaching, but I love you, Mark. We love Mark.
I love you too, wherever you are.
I love Mark too.
Who doesn't? This man's awesome.
All right, here we go with some questions. Name and your question, please, and we'll get it to you.
My name's Gary, and I first of all wanted to thank all you guys for your work, because one of the main reasons I play Blizzard games is for the story, and it's all thanks to you guys.
Thank you, Gary.
The main question I have is, you've done animated shorts, you've done comics. Is there an Overwatch novel coming by any chance?
I don't know if we have that answer at the moment. Scriptbot, you got anything on that? We're not quite sure on our end.
This is just zeros and ones. I'm not helpful.
It's always good to gauge interest in things like that. So
thank you for playing.
Absolutely. I think the only way I could possibly answer that is, last year we did one of our first audio dramas for World of Warcraft, and we did a second one this year. So we're always looking at new ways to tell stories with our characters. So, nothing's out of the question. Yeah.
Your name and your question, please.
Hi there. My name's Joel.
Hey, Joel. Hi, Joel.
Hi there. So how often is it that you guys get either a lore idea or a little spark from someone necessarily outside of the story department? Let's say someone from QA or from programming or anyone else on the game design team.
Yes, that happens pretty consistently, and we've tried to foster kind of the message of good ideas can come from anywhere. And we've gotten a few things over the transom. I think one of them that actually made it into one of our cinematics recently. So We do believe in one of the core aspects of the company, every voice matters. And, sometimes we have we're so myopic on an idea that we might not see that simple thing that can, unlock the deeper story. So it does happen, yeah. And usually what we ask is for people to remind us, because sometimes you get an email, it's like, hey, how about this? And you're so on fire that you forget about it. So, whoever's out there who has an idea, please keep hitting us.
Because we are listening, for sure. I know I keep an Excel spreadsheet of continuing story hooks and things that we haven't really explored just for inspirational purposes for our team.
There are a lot of times where we have ideas in the room that we would love to do that, but we can't. This isn't that type of project, but we just put that in the top shelf because we know that when someone asks us to make a story, we'll go to that, hopefully. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ruth Lewis. Actually, I have a question for Christy. What was your hardest scene to write in the novel War Crimes?
What was my what? Hardest?
Hardest scene to write in War Crimes.
Wow. I reference you all back to my kill board. I think the hardest scene for me was the scene where Anduin has to decide that he's going to save Garrosh Hellscream after Garrosh has done everything he can to try to destroy Anduin emotionally. And it was difficult because I knew this was a really pivotal scene. And in order for people to feel the heft of it, it had to strike just the right note. So it was a very intimidating scene because it was so important. And I really I'm trained as an actress, so I'm used to inhabiting a role, and I bring that to my writing. So I really tried to settle into those characters and let them do the talking. So yeah, that was a rough one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Tim Vasconcelos. Sorry, I wrote mine down because I have kind of a lot of thoughts going on. But I've seen a common theme through many or the earlier franchises, namely StarCraft and WarCraft, where you have sort of a dark hero that is the focal point to unite, opposing factions to overcome a much greater and dangerous common enemy. While the newer franchises like Hearthstone and Overwatch, you sort of get the sense of belonging and heroism that everyone can make a difference and that you belong with us. But I'm curious to know, what do these themes speak to, the message that Blizzard wants to share with the world in which we live? You spoke earlier about wanting to connect with those overarching concepts of love, loss. But what is it that what difference does Blizzard want to make in the world in which we live today?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
And, I think that it shows in everything we do as a company that we want to be accepting. We want to speak to a diverse audience and a global audience. And I think that is the answer, as simple as it is, right? We want to express the human condition, as trite as it is to say that. What does it mean to be a human being? What does it mean to have, conflicts of interest? What does it mean to love and to hate, etc.? And, I know these things all sound simple, but when we feel them, they are not simple, right? And that's what we're trying to express. So yes, we have dark heroes that actually do the right thing. We have, golden angels who do the wrong thing. So that's all the stuff that we're exploring, because I think we all share the same story of being a human being.
Good question. Thank you so much. Your name and question, please.
Hi, my name is Paris, and I was wondering how you find the inspiration for diversity. How do you not go around in circles?
Another great question. And I think, for me personally, what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to open our story rooms to get different POVs, to have different cultures, to have different voices in our story room. So it's not all, one flavor, right? It's all not one single story. I'll give a really super specific example that I always use in our rooms. It's so our players in China are not going to get the Robert Downey Jr. reference of pouring a slushie on some kid's head in the 80s, right? That's like a John Hughes movie. So that's super specific, but that's something that I use to say that, we have to open up our POV. Because again, we're speaking to lots of different cultures, backgrounds, and, choices in how we live our lives. So we always keep that at the forefront of when we're telling story.
And I'd like to add on to that. A lot of it is just reminding yourself to open your worldview, because we're all human beings. We all have our own group of friends and our own job, and so you can have a small silo or a big silo, but you're in a silo unless you make an effort to not be. And so it really is a conscious thing where you have to keep reminding yourself to think outside the box of, well, should this character be, I'll give you a perfect example, actually, on the Illidan Harbingers piece that we did. Originally, the main character was a male demon hunter, a male Illidari. And we just kind of one day looked at it and went, there's nothing about this in the dialogue that suggests male or female. It could be anybody, And then we started thinking about, is it actually more powerful in this particular story if it's a female? And ultimately, we felt that it really was. So that's, it's really just about constantly reminding yourself to open your worldview a bit.
Thank you for your question.
Hello, my name is Christian, and my question is for Christy. When you first started on Firstborn, what was it that inspired you to write a Terran getting a preserver's soul stuck in his body?
This is one of the fun things about working with Blizzard is the stories can be created in a different way each time. We've addressed that, comics, whatever. And when we were working when I've worked on some of the novels, sometimes I have a 30-page script of an outline that they give me, and I flesh that out. Other times there's kind of a vague idea, and then we get together and we jam on it and flesh that out. War Crimes was like that. The basic idea was we want to put Garrosh Hellscream on trial, and we just went with that. The Dark Templar trilogy was that key idea actually came from Chris Metzen, and he wanted to explore the idea of basically kind of an average Joe having this amazing thing happen to him, and then kind of being shoved into the forefront of what's going on in the galaxy. And so fun little twist to that. Originally, Jake was supposed to be a telepath. And so I wrote the first draft with Jake as a telepath, a latent telepath. He wasn't aware of it, but he was. And I got feedback saying, we really like this. There's a lot that's solid here, but we have a change. We don't want him to be a telepath. And I'm like, I'm going to need an extension on my deadline. But I think it was the right call. I think having him not have any of the hardware in his head to deal with that really made for a compelling story. So that actually was from Chris Metzen and the EC Dev team.
Hi, I'm Emily.
Hey.
So my question is if you have any advice for an aspiring storyteller, what do you look for in a writing portfolio? What can, say, a new grad with an English degree and a few small games and a huge backlog of fan fiction under her belt do to sit where you're sitting?
Oh, can I just jump onto the fan fiction? So I know that sometimes that has a negative connotation, and I'm here to tell you absolutely not, right? So I started out writing fan fiction and making fan films. And I think that the important aspect there is that you're expressing something you love creatively, so just keep doing that. So I just want to say you're already ahead of the game there.
Yep.
And then, the other aspect, that I would, or the other lesson that I would impart on you is one that I did ignore when, someone told me, a writer writes. And I was like, writing, I'll do that later, right? So express your craft. Constantly be writing, creating, shooting, editing, whatever it is that's your passion. Don't set it aside. Now, I know that a lot of people have that one burning idea that keeps you up at 4 a.m, and, we always talk about ours. Mm-hmm. So whatever that is for you, don't let it die. Just keep making it. And I'm sure, Christy and everyone else has other aspects of it.
I would just add on to that. Whatever it is that you create, whatever it is you're writing, show it to people. There are so many writers who will give you this advice that, part of writing is getting critiques from your friends, from strangers, just writing it and sticking it in a drawer and saying, I'll rewrite that 500 times and keep reading it just myself. You need to hear how other people are reacting to your work. Yeah. So I would definitely say do that. And the other thing I would say is learn how to write a lot of different things. Study poetry, study playwriting. As Chrissy was saying, she studied to be an actress. Doing that gives you a control of dialogue. It gives you control of understanding how people speak. So, take acting classes, learn, as much as you can about how people speak, I think will help you a lot.
And to jump on that, I remember, Christy, that musical theater background came in pretty handy.
Oh, yeah.
For the Hearthstone piece you saw today. We got a Rodgers and Hammerstein lyricist over here. So we were able to kind of tap into that. Our team was to, see the product you saw today.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I did. I was trained as a playwright, and I had written the book and lyrics for a musical. And so they were doing that, and I'm like, I could try that. What I would do, adding on that, I have my acting and my musical theater background. The other thing that I have learned as I've gotten out into the world more is become an experience junkie. Try everything. Try foods you don't like. Try an art class if you don't draw. Try everything. Travel. Listen. Go and eat at a restaurant of the cuisine you've never had. Just get out and experience life.
Be curious.
Be curious. Absolutely.
And if it's what you want, don't stop.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Don't quit.
Keep feeding it.
Yeah.
Good question. Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's Viet. I'm from California. Earlier this year, the Overwatch team announced that Farah's father hails from is Canadian First Nations from the Pacific Northwest. So I would like to know, first of all, what tribe is he from? What tribe does he hail from? And when can we expect some sort of story about her relationship to her father and their tribe?
I don't know if this is one for you, Sean.
Yeah, I can try to think. I just don't believe we've ever released that information, and I don't believe it's fair for us on CDEV to release something for the Overwatch team. If that's a piece of lore that they want to deliver, I don't really want to step on their toes in that thing. But we do have that information, and that's something that I keep on my team is all those little nitpicky little details of every single character, setting, map, you name it. We have that logged away on our team, and we keep track of that because it influences all the other stories and all the other ideas that we kind of pitch and play with as the week goes along. So yes, we know, but we haven't really said, I don't believe.
But know that, the themes of family and history and our pasts are very important to us, as hopefully you've seen in some of the recent releases.
I'm Luke, and when you're writing an outline for your story, where do you start? Do you start with the beginning or the end or anything in the middle?
Good question.
Good question. Great question.
I only figured this out a few years ago. So usually the way we work is we get into a room and we talk out the story. We're like, hey, we think these are the scenes we want to see, or these are the characters or the themes we want to explore, and then we just put the rough beats, Farah walks into a room, and then we break those down, and then that eventually becomes an outline. And I know different writers do things differently, but I think that's generally the norm. Like I once heard a novelist telling me that he writes the end first, and then he lays all the pieces out so he can get to that end. But that's how we work, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, the game teams will come to us with an initiative, and we will get this room together, and we'll throw out a bunch of ideas, and, 3 or 4 might be something that we break off on ourselves and start busting out our own together. And then we'll come back to them, and we'll be like, okay, we got 3 ideas, 3 pitches, here's some, pop, pop, pop. And they'll help us find the one that they want to represent their game.
Yeah.
But if you're asking these questions at your age, you're ahead of the game, man.
You're so far ahead of the game,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Luke. We got 5 minutes left for questions. Keep us going.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Jack.
Hey, Jack.
Hey, Jack.
Just had a question about Overwatch, but it kind of also relates to the successes and challenges I imagine you guys must have faced writing something as expansive as LoreCraft. So you guys have done an amazing job setting up the foundation, the basis of the Overwatch story, like how all the characters got to where they are now. And we also saw hints of what's in store in the future with the Doomfist comic, the Zarya comic, how she partnered up with the Omnics and kind of got over her prejudices a little bit. My question is, do you guys have a concrete framework for what's in the future for Overwatch, and what kind of challenges do you guys currently face to try to put those plans into motion?
I think that might be along the lines of Sean's earlier question. Like that is, with the game team, and we kind of help them execute, but to like reveal that stuff on their behalf would probably be unfair to them. But just know that, again, we are expressing both the macro and the micro, and I think you see it in the most recent, things that we've shipped out there.
I think one thing I can say is that it's really wonderful working with the game team. We've developed a very good working relationship. So sometimes things come from us, and sometimes things come from them, and sometimes things just get tossed out in the middle of a meeting, and it turns out to be, the perfect fit. So there are many voices heard.
Great makeup.
Yeah, great makeup.
Oh, yeah.
Hypnotic.
Loving it over here.
Hypnotic to watch you talk, actually.
Hi, my name is Ryan, and I'm not very familiar with any external media for Diablo, but how do you craft more lore for games like Diablo if all you have, other than events or flavor text in certain items, is pretty much all that's there?
Well, I think we recently did. What did we ship recently, Sean?
Expanded universe-wise?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, we have the books of Cain and Tyrael
Yeah.
that provide a lot of roadmap to the background and the histories of not only the universe of itself and like the cosmos, it's actually how the factions are laid out. So there's those two reference books. You don't want to call them Bibles, but they're definitely solid reference books that these folks leverage all the time. So, and I try to make sure that they don't have to read like everything cover to cover, that I can give them, they're like, we're thinking about this idea. Do we have anything to say about X or Y? And I usually just whip up something for them like, here you go. So we definitely have those, and there's some side stories also in the novels that provide some other characters and scenarios to execute on or to investigate down the road. So there's definitely some meat there on that bone. It's not just in the items and the events.
And we've also done short stories and for the Necromancer, we just did a comic where we tried to build out some more of the backstory of those characters. And we'll usually put those up on our website. You can find them on the Diablo website.
I think we got time for one more quick question.
Hi, you guys are a great panel. I was wondering if you ever act out your part of your story.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. All the time. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
This is my wife. This is such a setup.
I see.
Yes, we do, and we love doing it.
Do you ever change your ideas or the stories change?
All the time.
Because you're acting it out. And you're like, that doesn't work. Or...
I'm like, I Laurence Olivier it up in the room. Give me something, I will jump on a seat and I will prance around as much as you need.
Well, a big aspect of our room is selling the other people in the room on the pitch. So, if you're kind of looking at your shoes and talking to them, it doesn't work. Like, Mark, you do this all the time, and all of us jump on the table basically, right? And we sell to the other people. And that's kind of the wonder of coming into work today. You're like, I don't know what's going to happen today.
Exactly.
Or I have an idea and I have to tell everyone about it.
Right. And we always do a read through of our scripts, and that requires a level of acting that when we
You're the casting agent. He's like, you're Uther.
You're assigned this role. You're assigned this role. Yeah.
I always get Sylvanas.
She does a great Sylvanas. Yes. Gang, I think that's going to be the last question for today. Thank you so much for coming out. This is your convention.
Thank you so much.
Everyone at home, thank you for watching. We will be out. You find us on the floor. We'll be outside if you want to catch us up with any other questions we may have missed. There's an author's panel later on. We've got ScriptBot, who we hope you love because we want to keep feeding ScriptBot electricity. Thank you again, everyone.
Thank you for attending LoreCraft, the Art of Storytelling. Up next, Diablo 3, Visual Effects of the Necromancer.